Well, this is Good News Friday, and boy, has it been a good news week in so many ways. I've got Larry Goldberg here once again. He's going to join me on these Fridays. Larry is, of course, a venture capitalist and a serial entrepreneur who owns some very cool companies in the software side. And Larry, glad to have you here again.
Thank you. Lovely to be here, Randy.
So we're going to be talking about inflation. We're going to be talking about interest rates. We're going to be talking about the Fed. We're going to be talking about Tesla. And, if this is stuff that you like to hear about, then hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit notify tomorrow morning. I've got that amazing show with Brian White coming up. Don't miss that. So that's why you want to hit notify, and then follow Larry over on @TeslaLarry on Twitter. Everybody's on Twitter now because everybody's going to make money, right, Larry? Everybody's going to. Now we're all going to make money off of tweeting.
Yeah, it's a great move that Twitter have made. I mean, they're killing it. They're just killing it. Everybody's down on them. Everybody's saying how Twitter is dead. And in the meantime, this dead bird is flying.
So Elon announced today that they've had the best week in terms of the number of minutes of watch time that they've ever had. Of course, it can be explained a little bit by this whole idea that maybe people can get paid to tweet. This, of course, was not a reaction necessarily to Threads coming out, but there could have been some in the market who were a little nervous about Threads and whether that would cause some problems at Twitter, which all the headlines have been saying all week. Oh my gosh, Twitter is dead now.
Yeah.
But they didn't think about the fact that maybe monetizing content providers might cause people to want to be on Twitter.
But really, what you say is correct, Randy. But really, the Threads versus Twitter competition, if you like, was already pre-decided. I mean, yes, Threads got this enormous, sign up. Why? Because, it's just connected to their billion user or 2 billion user, who knows how many users they really have. But it was so easy just to click the, additional button and become a member of Threads. But as Chamath said, actually, and he should know a thing or two about Meta, but as he said on the most recent All In podcast, the actual engagement has fallen day by day by day by day, and the actual searches for Threads has fallen day by day by day. So you get this enormous amount of interest, but to actually spark conversation and to engage people in conversation, that's a higher bar, particularly when you think about where people are coming from in the meta world. It's a different world to the world of Twitter. Now, I'm biased. I'm a Twitter user, and I'm very engaged on Twitter. I love to see the debate. I love to hear the opposite points of view. I also like to actually make my own point of view heard, but that's normal. And I'm not a creator. I'm a participant, but not a creator. I post some of the material that I do research on, but I do that research for myself. But posting it makes me a little bit more, I think, disciplined about it. In fact, by posting it, I get the kind of comments that say, hey, you missed this number, or you double counted this number, or you miscalculated. And it helps, me become more rigorous. So I think if you listen to Chamath, who is very wise in this matter, he has deep, deep, deep product knowledge on these social networks, you can see that Threads are not a threat to the robust and very active engagement on Twitter. That's my view.
I've developed a couple of businesses over the years that required you to have you and your friend both on them at the same time.
Right.
And this is always a problem. It's how do you get the friend on until you get you on, and how do you get you on until your friend's on? Right. And right now, of course, the Twitter communities are massive. I mean, in the sports world, in the news world, just in the hobby world. You have all kinds of communities where people have been coming together for years. This is not going to be something that's going to be easy to break into. So we'll see over time what happens with Threads. But I did think that the timing was pretty good for Twitter to come back. They've been talking about it for months now, about this business of going ahead and providing some kind of an income to those who are extremely active on Twitter and providing content. And people started reporting their numbers, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000.
There's a bit of a misnomer about those numbers, that people should be a little bit more cautious. These are not this is not monthly revenue. No. This is like 3 or 4 months of revenue.
Yes.
So, there should be a little bit more measure in the excitement. So I just wanted to put that out there. So, but nonetheless, there's no doubt about it that, having creators, and there are really outstanding creators on every side of every argument in all these areas you talked about and more. And, they form an invaluable service, just as the creators on YouTube do. Yes. Now the question is, whether the Twitter platform is equally powerful as a video platform, as a audio platform, and as a blogging platform, as much as it is a thread platform, if I could use it, if I'm allowed to use it.
Right.
But you say that it was very timely that it came out, but Randy, they've been rolling out product after product after product after years, in which Twitter products, in fact, every time Twitter buys a product, it was the death sentence for that product. Yeah. They bought a lot of product over time, but they just killed it. And so I think, 3 or 4 things are happening at the same time. One, there's a lot of product development, a lot of experimentation, as you imagine in a Elon-driven world.
Yes.
There's a lot more focus on the advertising and the business side of it, as you'd imagine, with Linda coming on. And all in all, the company's becoming very professional. It has the feel of an Elon. It is beginning to get the feel of an Elon company. So it's very positive.
Yeah, extremely. So one of the
full disclosure, I'm an investor in Twitter, so I'm very biased.
Very, very inspired.
Yeah.
So also over the course of this week, there's been this other kind of storyline that was developing. I saw it early in the week, and I started talking about it on my shows. And that was this idea that somehow the EV revolution was over, especially in the United States. Right. That because of all these different failures that were happening with the startups, as well as some of the legacy companies, that, oh my gosh, it hit its peak, and now it's going to collapse.
Fine. Yeah,
and then some of the headlines would even say, of course, except Tesla. They would actually be honest to say except Tesla. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So starting yesterday, a bunch of us started responding to that. I don't know if I was first or second. I think that Farzad and I actually did it within a few minutes of each other. We actually had the same headline. It's very close to the same headline. And we came out like within minutes of one another, that the Tesla killers are dying. There's no doubt about it. So, Larry, I took another look at that today. And just a little while ago, I put up a video earlier today, and I'll put a card so you guys can look at it, about what the Tesla advantages are, because a lot of the Tesla Q folks are saying, oh, even Gary Black sometimes says, well, if you're out there with a couple of years with a certain advantage, then everybody else can just come in and copy it. And I've seen that in my life. I've always been the innovator, and the copycats would come. I even had one guy say, I see what works for Randy, and then I do it. And some of the stuff he could, but some of the stuff he couldn't. So I was trying to figure out what are kind of the big ones from a consumer point of view that are really going to stop I don't care if they stop the competition, slow down the competition, keep the competition from catching Tesla for years, not just for weeks, but for years. And I decided that the number one, maybe you'll have a difference of opinion, that number one was the charging stations from a consumer point of view.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out, Randy, because you've talked about them getting rid of the charging stations, and it's not going to happen. And it is so strategic to their goal and to their mission. It's not going to happen. But we can agree to disagree with that. But look, here's the situation. In the innovator's dilemma, the innovator makes it extremely difficult for the leader those in the lead in the legacy. And then the innovator faces another company coming with an innovation, and that's the dilemma. What do they do at that point? What we have seen to date is nobody has stepped up. Nobody has stepped up. I mean, I got these guys who told me that Volkswagen are going to kill Tesla. They're going to kill Tesla. They've got umpteen number factories. They've got all this market, blah, 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 blah. This was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't want to name names, but I was told in no uncertain terms. And when I try to present a reasonable argument, I was, poo-pooed. Oh, what does he know? He's an idiot, blah, 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 blah. And these guys are all much cleverer than Elon. They head and shoulders above Elon. And, they're quick to point out that Elon doesn't know diddly about, anything. And
he's not even an engineer.
He's not even an engineer. Yeah, I love that one. But the point is, there is an innovator's dilemma. For those that create the innovation, they have to stay ahead of the pack. And it's not often that they can. I mean, look how Microsoft stumbled for years, and part of that had to do with government interference and so on and so forth. But now, Google's in that situation where what do they do about ChatGPT? I have my views on that. But nonetheless, we have not yet seen a company that has stepped up to the plate. Yeah, Ford made the Mustang. Yeah, Ford made this kind of truck. And yeah, we've got, but we haven't seen the kind of disruption that the innovator needs to be concerned about. Now, is BYD that company?
Probably not.
I'm not seeing it. But they are stepping up to the plate. And China is very serious about the EV business, as is the United States. Look, I went to help the delivery team deliver cars, and I got my eyes opened about demand. I realized that we have been misreading the situation. Because of all these discounts, we were reading that this is the end of demand, blah, blah, blah. The demand is unbelievable. And I went back to the numbers, and so I took the over on Troy. But I was completely underestimating just how large that demand is. And I am seeing evidence now, and I don't want to get into it on this call because, we want to focus on the market, that the demand remains extremely strong. But where's the demand for the competitor's car?
Yeah.
It's not there. This week, 2 things happened that shocked me, really shocked me. One of my friends told me that they were buying Tesla, that they had bought Tesla shares. I was bowled over. Why? These are very blue, voters, very blue. And, we have disagreements, and we've been friends for years, but they are, they bleed blue. And I tell you, they buying Tesla shares shocked me because, anyway.
Yeah,
that's
I
the
get
one.
it. Yeah.
The other was a colleague of mine who I've known for 20 plus years, worked with. He and I worked together very closely in some very interesting developments. And he was one of the first people that I let drive my Tesla car when I bought it back in 2017. And he was very, very skeptical and also very critical of the many little things, particularly the early, auto steer and, other, actually we were getting navigate on autopilot. He was anyway, the point is he's a very, very discriminating guy. In fact, I call him Dr. No, because he's always no, no, no. He calls me up. I need a referral code. I said, what? You buying a test? He said, yes. That to me is a sign. Oh, by the way, also, you know, significant, not that far left, but on the left. So, you know, those are two data points,
yeah,
but I'm getting a mass of them. So I'm, you know, here we are, you know, agreeing with each other.
I know.
Not good.
So the reason I picked charging, so I was looking at it from the standpoint of them catching up. I'm glad you kind of switched the subject to the fact that it's not just a matter of catching up. If you're really going to catch up, you really need to innovate on your own. Yes. But I'm going to stick with my original idea here, though, and say I think the charging stations, because I think that Ford and General Motors came to the table because they were getting so many people talking about the fact that range anxiety was the big problem. They recognized that if they didn't solve range anxiety, it didn't matter what else the car could do. And so they were forced to come to the table.
I think there's truth in that. The problem is that there are 3 or 4 or 5 other things that they were going to discover once they fix that problem.
And then second one would be?
Over-the-air updates.
That's my number 2.
I mean, the over-the-air updates, 6 years. I mean, how much time do you need, Volkswagen? 6 years? It's
a car that is improving itself. A car that you buy today and 5 years later, it's better than it was when you bought it. And they can't figure out how to do that. I've seen a number of headlines and people talking about the fact that the consumer out there right now is saying, if you don't have the over-the-air update, you're not in the business. You're just not in the business.
We're talking about 6 years. Listen, in the innovator's dilemma, it is not enough to simply copy the feature set of the leader. It's not enough. The innovator's dilemma, that the guy in the back has to innovate beyond the guy in the front, right?
Yep.
That is that's the minimum. And so when you talk about these things that Tesla's had for for half a decade, look, my 2017 Model 3 is as good as my 2022 Model 3. Right. It's just the same car. It's as good.
So my number 3, Larry, was frictionless purchase experience. Again, from the consumer standpoint.
Thank you. Yeah. Standing at the dealership the other day, I just saw these people saying, you see them floating on air, because they go to do the test drive and then they go from there to do the purchase
on a computer.
Nothing to it. They've already done all the paperwork on the website. What do you have to think about?
And people are now used to that kind of process of making any size purchase. And so if they now have to go back in time to going to deal with some salesman that's going to try to talk them out of their lunch, and then fill out reams and reams of paper where another salesman, the financial salesman, who's filling out that paperwork, is going to try to sell you on various kinds of theft insurance and all kinds of other things. And who wants to go through that? And you're bundling, because you can get your financing and your insurance taken care of online at the same time. I mean, it's just like, how are people, and these guys, how are they going to fight it when they've got a dealer network that they've got to deal with?
It's so sad. It is so sad. I mean, here we just talked about 3 innovations, just 3. Out of, I don't know how many.
20 that I come up with so far.
And anyway, okay. No, right. There's not going to be a catch up.
All right. So this week, one of the weird parts, we're gonna get to inflation and the Fed in a minute. Yeah. But one of the weird parts this week was I started seeing it on Monday, and it was like the market was up, and and the Dow was up and the NASDAQ was down, and Tesla and most of the other Magnificent Seven were down or flat. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And all of a sudden, I think it was Ross, who said, Ross Gerber on Twitter, who said, oh, the NASDAQ has announced they're going to do a rebalancing because these Magnificent Seven have just become too much of the overall NASDAQ index. And I had to think about what a rebalance even was. Larry, I've been playing the market for over 50 years. I've never heard of this size, this magnitude of a rebalance on an index.
Yeah, but have you ever seen such an imbalance on an index before?
Well, it's true. I'm not going to argue that. But wow, it's significant. Now, we don't know what the rebalance is supposed to come out this afternoon. And when we started this particular recording, it hadn't happened yet. But I think all week, I thought maybe it would go away after a day. And I think all week, the Magnificent Seven were being held in check by this rebalance until basically yesterday and today, Tesla finally broke loose. What do you think?
I'm very skeptical of trying to pin down a single impact. I mean, we were able to pin that down with S&P. We were able to pin that down with, the share split. The rebalance, until we hear something firm and official about what it really means, it's just speculation. So we get, just these speculative forces playing against each other. There's somebody who knows more about the market than I do that could opine on this. But my own sense of it is that it's just Mr. Market. Possibly the rumors influencing and impacting and, the market makers may have more information on it than we do, or all of the above. So I don't know. I mean, you're asking a non-expert to give some expert opinion.
But the experts. Come on, Larry. You watch the experts the same way I do. You get 7 experts in a room, you'll get 8 opinions.
Yeah. And talking about experts, what if the Federal Reserve has brought us in to a soft landing after all, and after we great experts in, Federal Reserve policy were wrong all along and they were right?
But what if they overstep, which is what that's what I'm afraid of, that they overstep and they drive us down when they didn't need to.
But you saw Truflation this morning.
It's flat. It's been flat to up the last 10 days.
2.11 this morning.
I didn't look this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
1.1. Truflation.
2.11.
2.11. Oh, it dropped a lot over yesterday.
A lot. Yeah. Now, I could be wrong. I've been traveling all day.
Okay.
Long story short, but I've been very busy with a whole lot of stuff. Anyway, I saw a tweet. I brought it up. And I was traveling in my car, and I saw this 2.11. I thought, what?
It is. I got it right in front of me. 2.11. That is a big drop overnight. 0.39 drop overnight.
That's right. So what if the Federal Reserve, for all our criticisms and all our skepticisms and for all that we've said nasty about them, what happens if they brought us into the soft landing and everything's smooth and beautiful from now on?
Well, that would be terrific.
Thank you.
But what I'm afraid of is, again, you got that big drop. If you look at if anybody that hasn't looked up Truflation, go to your computer right now, look up Truflation and look at the curve. It is just like this. And one of the governors, I forget which governor.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, Yellen's still very.
Yeah, Yellen came out yesterday and was very, very hawkish. And he says, but one data point, meaning the CPI and the PPI. He says, one data point? What does that tell me? And I'm thinking, how many data points? What are you talking about data points? Let me show you Zillow. Let me show you Redfin. Let me show you Truflation. Let me show you months and months and months of CPI and PPI coming down. Let me show you the labor statistics. One data point?
It's hard to see which data, because if you look at labor, if you look at, the trend in labor, if you look at the trend in all of these data points that you mentioned, it's hard to see what we are guarding against by this level of interest rate. Very hard to see, particularly when you think of the job the Fed has, and we stopped talking about the 3 to 6 months ago, when you see the job the Fed has to manage their balance sheet. Their balance sheet, I mean, they must be losing so much money. I mean, and they're taking on more by saving all these banks, rescuing all these banks. And so at a point in time, the market's going to lose its confidence in the Federal Reserve Bank. Can you imagine if the world lost its confidence in the Federal Reserve Bank? I mean, we're rapidly losing our confidence in the Chinese Reserve Bank, by the way, but that's a subject for another day. But yeah, we have to handle that, and it looks like we've come in for a soft landing. If they'd only recognize their own victory and declare it, because to a large extent, what's happened, what is happening, if you believe the Truflation numbers, if you believe that that this is not one data point, this is many, and that this is what it's indicating, this could be a perfect moment to stop.
Yeah.
And guard against having to pump it up again.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect.
I couldn't agree more. So today, on the other side of the coin, on the positive side, in terms of the economy, we had the big banks coming out with really good numbers. I will be the first to tell you that I have not, over my years of investing, I have not paid, and watching the economy, I haven't paid that much attention to the impact of the big banks. I know that it's the very first earnings season, and so people look at that as kind of a bellwether. Larry, do you have any more color to add to how the big banks, I mean, they didn't seem to have much impact on the market today, the fact that they beat by such a large amount. What's your thinking?
Well, you have to understand that the top banks, the top 5 banks, have got a very significant advantage to all the other banks, because they can take people's money on deposit at 0 interest in a high interest environment. It doesn't make any sense. It is the result of, really, really, I think, bad policy, bad public policy in regard to this idea of these 5 banks are to be protected at all costs, and the other banks have to just deal with it. And it leads to these terrible disparities and market dislocations. Not having said that, firstly, let me stipulate, I'm a Jamie Dimon fan. Now, and also let me stipulate, JP Morgan Chase was one of my biggest clients in my previous company, so I have a very strong affection for that company, and they're not lovers of Elon and Tesla are not lovers of them, but that's beside the point. But I regard them as one of the best run banks in the world. I regard them as an extremely well-run company. Given the size of the company, it's very difficult to have a well-run large company, very difficult. But despite that, I think they're very well-run. And Jamie Dimon, to me, has his head very well set on his shoulders. So what do I think? I think that it's very difficult, being a big bank in this environment, not to do extraordinarily well. Extraordinarily well. And it is a reflection of very bad policy. And so I think that the market fully expected this. I think they knew it was going to come, and I think that it's kind of it's not news of any value.
I got you.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Let me back up for just a second. We were talking about this entire this rebalancing and the odd way that the market reacted this way. And a couple of people dismissed the rebalancing and said maybe this is the beginning of the rotation, that we need a rotation out of the techs and into a broader spectrum of the market if this is going to be a real recovery and a real bull market. I dismissed that entirely because, again, I have made my mind up that this was everything to do with the rebalancing. That anybody that, to me, if you look at the idea of rebalancing and you're holding, and you know that the S&P and the NASDAQ are going to have to shift their holdings. The ones that are indexed to the S&P and the NASDAQ are going to have to shift their holdings as soon as this becomes effective. And that the holdings that are going to lose liquidity are going to be the Magnificent Seven, then I'm going to try to get out ahead of that. I'm going to take my winnings and put them someplace else. Anyway, between those two, do you think either one? First of all, you've already said what you thought about the rebalance, but what do you think about a possible rotation? Is that happening? Should it happen? Do you think it'll happen soon? What do you think about rebalancing?
I think that the rotation. I think that
the rotation. The rotation.
Yeah, I think the Magnificent Seven are going to do better in the next 5 years in relation to the rest of the market than they did the last 5 years, because the impact of AI is going to be so enormous, and the bigger, the large companies are going to win it all because it just takes such enormous resources.
Yeah.
Now, the government can try and break them up. It's more than possible that, if this administration gets reelected, that they will be even more aggressive. They're using the FTC in the most egregious possible way. And that, we should talk about what they're trying to do with Twitter, this case that Twitter has against the FTC is actually quite serious.
Yes.
I think, but what do I know? I can't see how the Magnificent Seven do not put more space between them and the rest of the market. And it's not just going to be those seven. There are going to be two or three that will emerge in addition to these.
Right.
But I will say that if you look at Tesla's investment in its compute power and its compute resources, you get a sense of what it's going to take to play in this market.
Right.
It's going to take an enormous amount of resource.
And like we said about the cars, somebody that wants to compete with Tesla in neural net training on video, nobody's even started that we know of. I don't think that there's anybody out there that has the first computer set up on their laptop somewhere. Maybe there is, but I mean, we're not talking about anybody that's developing a specific big chip that's going to be able to do what Dojo's doing, much less putting it in a cabinet and making it into a massive.
I think there's a little wrinkle in that particular. Just said. There are computer companies, there are chip design companies, not fabricators, but chip design companies that are designing extremely efficacious chips that will compete directly against Dojo, the Dojo chip, not directly in terms of what Dojo are doing in terms of memory and processing power, but there's an enormous revolution taking place in the architecture of these chips for the purpose of machine learning or neural nets or AI in general.
Right.
It's not a given that Dojo design is going to be the solution for video learning. It could be. I mean, they've thought about it more than perhaps anybody else. But separate the chip development from the video development, because I have no doubt that Tesla are going to use a mix of hardware in terms of trying to achieve what it achieves. I mean, what they're trying to achieve, is this ability to operate in a video environment like a human being can operate. And it's going to take a lot. I spoke last week on a Spaces about Bard and GPT-4, that, these tools hallucinate, and these hallucinations really render most of what they do from a real life perspective as, there's not a, there is a very narrow set of use cases that they can at the moment be usefully employed in from a perspective of real life,
right. Mm-hmm.
large scale implementations. And by the way, search, it may be one of those, because it's not the end of the world if some of your searches are bad.
But they already are.
Exactly. And Google has become so bad it's almost unusable. It's just swimming through ads. Now, going, to Tesla's advantage in that area, it's not just the chip, and the chip may not be as big a differentiator as a lot of people say. It may not even be a differentiator, and it may go through 2 or 3 or 4 generations of change before it becomes a huge differentiator. But nobody is tackling it the way Tesla's tackling it, and we have learned to respect what they do in terms of being able to innovate. But that's what I talk about, innovation. And there's not a car company.
It's not even a thought yet. It's not even like...
No. Volkswagen hired 15,000, some incredible number of people. I don't think Tesla's got 150. Well, they've got probably more than 150, but an order or 2 orders of magnitude less than Volkswagen hired.
Well,
and look where Volkswagen.
So let's talk about the stock specifically. Let's talk about Tesla stock specifically. So the stock had a very good week, and ended up almost very, very, very close to its recent high. I guess 283, I think, was the recent high, so it went above that for a while today, and then dropped back down a little below, I think, if I remember right, at the very close. I had cleverly, I know I've had this streak, Larry, it's crazy. Yesterday morning, I said Tesla needed to go up 5.5 a day in order to get to 300 by Wednesday. Went up 5.9 yesterday and 3.3 today. I'm kind of like, and almost hit my 5.5 again. Anyway, so I'm still pulling for it, Larry, to get to 3. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to sell anything, but I'm still, just for fun, just like you follow a baseball player and his stats. I'm just for fun. I'd like to see Tesla get to 300, or technically, I went back and looked. Technically, the resistance point, I think, is 308, even though round numbers are always a resistance point. 308 is technically the resistance level. Anyway, you, I think, don't agree. You don't think it's going to get to 300?
I don't think so. I think, everybody's looking to the 18th now. Everybody's looking to earnings right now.
Right.
And everybody's getting nervous because Tesla has a habit of slipping on the news. I don't think it's going to break the habit. Now, I am at $1 a share.
Okay.
And the great Gary Black is at like 80 cents, 81 cents, something like that. And everybody's telling me how wrong I am.
Yeah, you've really messed up, Larry.
It could be. I mean, I tend to be optimistic on their earnings, and I am skeptical that their discounts were as bad as they say they were, as it said there was. I was very impressed with Brian Wong's analysis, and I did that analysis, and the average price that I came up with, which was based on what I think is a rigorous formula, is higher than most of the pundits are saying.
Yes, I think you came in at around 21, right? 20 and a half, 21, somewhere around there.
Just under 20. Just
under 20. Just right at, call it 20.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm at 21. I'm a little higher because I have this long list of events that took place or that we assume took place with regard to things that would impact margins, like making way more Model Ys, which have larger margins. Getting further along in the process of ramping up in both Berlin and Austin, which would increase the margins in those plants, reduce the overhead as a component of the cost of goods sold because they're making more in that facility. So there's a bunch of those kind of things, which if you start adding up 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, you starts turning into real numbers.
Yeah, but I think that may be true. I'd be very interested to see how Troy spins out the actual gross margin number, because he's normally, he does this bottom-up calculation, which is quite robust. He's never been right, but it's quite robust. But it's better. It may be better than Brian's approach, which is, holistic. And Brian pointed out about the increase in the SNX, which could be quite material. You may be right that the Y versus the 3 is material. Well, if you take those two, you could well get a materially larger number. All of that is true. All of that is sound. It's very, very hard to tell. We could be out by quite a lot. And we could be short. I mean, when it came to depicting the actual deliveries, all the negative stuff that was out there depressed our own exuberance. So having had that exuberance depressed once, I'm trying to kind of say, no, I'm going to do my numbers and let's see where it falls. So that's what I'm thinking. But I don't know if we're going to do another session about the numbers, but that's what I'm thinking. Anyway, back to the share price, which is where we started.
Right.
I think that there's going to be a lot of skepticism ahead of the report on the 18th or 19th? 19th, on the 19th. So on the night of the 18th, if we finish above 380, I will be surprised. 280. Thank you.
I know, it's so hard. So many numbers.
And that's where I stand. And then if the number's 80 to 84, I think it'll drift down before it goes up again.
On the earnings per share.
Yeah. And if we get a real surprise like the old days to 90, then we'll see 300. That's my untutored sense of it.
So
not investment advice.
Yes, of course. And what do you think will be announced? Will we get a firm announcement on India? Will we get any kind of an announcement on the Cybertruck release date or handover date? Any update on Highland? What kind of announcements do you think are likely for Wednesday afternoon?
I'd be shocked if we don't get an announcement on Cybertruck. I've been calling for September.
Yeah.
I see now I'm probably going to have to slip that back to October. But I think we're going to see a delivery event, just an internal to employees for the October timeframe, with the idea of trying to deliver a truck to a customer before December. That's what I'm thinking. Gary has a very high number for Cybertrucks for next year. I can't see them doing, they haven't got to but 200,000 of Ys after, so I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard. And as to mega factory announcements,
Gigafactories, yeah.
Gigafactory announcements. I can't see a gigafactory announcement before the fourth quarter. I think they like to be a lot further along in the decision process. Mexico is troubled. It's
something going on.
Pardon?
Something going on.
Well, it's taken a lot longer to get that something to go along than they had in mind, and I think that it's, I think that it's not good news. Now, I'm going there in late August, and right now I'm still planning on seeing groundbreaking.
That's right. I hope you're right.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
All right. All right, Larry. Well, that kind of covered everything that I thought was of interest from this past week. This will be an incredible week.
Oh, what? Wait. You're ducking the issue. What is your prediction for the share price for pre-announcement and then post-announcement?
Okay. So, yes, we run up to 300, maybe 308, because that is the resistance level. So we might run up to 308. We might back off before, the close of Wednesday. I think it will. I think it'll back off something, but it won't back off that much. It'll be very close to the high of the week and very close to that 300, 308, whatever that number might turn out to be. I don't know which resistance will be the one that stops it. And then, as always, I'm anticipating a sell-off after. And the only way that can be stopped is if Elon doesn't say anything. Means he's not there. And I love you, Elon, but when you speak, everybody listens and then they sell the stock. But if Elon doesn't speak, that would be one thing. Or if there is an announcement of significance, a big time announcement that nobody's expecting, like AI Day 3, and
something. AI Day 3 is a negative, not a positive.
Well, that would be a negative, but maybe not the announcement that is going to happen.
Cybertruck delivery is the key announcement
yes.
that the investment community, the institutional investment community are looking for.
Yeah, because it's a physical thing. It's a done deal. It's just a matter of producing it.
Optimus, AI Day, not good.
Your friends are going to be extremely impressed, Larry, when your $1 a share average cost of Tesla stock turns into 5,000 after Optimus becomes a real thing.
Absolutely.
All right.
From your lips.
Having said all of that, Larry, I'm sure we'll have you on. I'm trying to figure out when, whether it'll be before or after earnings. Maybe we'll talk about that after we get done here today. But we'll have Larry on because it'll be important to have him opine about what happens this week. Certainly.
And why he was wrong.
And why he was right and wrong. That's right. Okay. So thanks again, Larry, for being on board. Please hit like if you like having Larry on. That, you know what that does. That helps me know that I need to bring him back and back. And then hit subscribe, notify, and then follow Larry on Twitter at Tesla Larry, and also the Patreon. I'm thanking you guys. Lots of Patreon signups this week. Original content going up now, so that gives you a chance to see something on Patreon that, well, I always caveat this. At some point, almost everything I see on Patreon probably will end up on YouTube, but not in the same way. That's so. Again, Larry, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And to all of you out there, thank you too. And it's been great talking to you.